My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
Hi there, I am Sarah Jane Case, and I'm the host of your new favorite show, Enneagram and Coffee. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the beautiful and hard parts of being human. We discuss the Enneagram, a personality map that is taking over the world, for increased self-compassion, personal growth, and healthier relationships. Listen to Enneagram and Coffee on the iHeart app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we are exploring Sarah J. Maas's second installment in the Crescent City series.
This is Jac.
And I'm Amy.
This is part 2 of this week's episode where we discuss chapters 10 through 13 in A House of Sky and Breath. The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
If you are enjoying the podcast, check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/Book Talk for Book Talk.
And so starts the argument and debate about Emile, and that will be this entire book and what will haunt them all. Bryce is adamant that they need to protect Emile and that she is concerned for his well-being. We'll go in and out of this topic throughout this chapter because, again, longest chapter in the world, and again, a theme that will never go away. But I want to point out, Bryce asks Tharion, quote, "If you even care that this oh-so-powerful Thunderbird is a kid who survived a fucking death camp and is now scared and alone," Tharion blinked and she could have strangled him. This is just showing more of Tharion's carelessness, his selfishness, his absolute lack of consideration.
And his bias against humans.
Yeah.
Whether it's bias or lack of empathy, Tharion has a difficult time connecting to people. Connecting to other people beyond his own selfish needs, which, if you think about Flame and Shadow, we do see a little bit of a change.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see if that change happens here or if it only happens in Flame and Shadow. So just want to point that out.
I love it. You know, keeping in mind with Tharion, Bryce goes head to head with him, which is pretty cool. I appreciate it. Eventually, Tharion's temper snaps. I also just don't like that Tharion takes a challenging step to her. He takes a few challenging steps, and I hate when men try to use their size as dominance as something like that. I feel like the second a guy does it, whether they're going to hit a woman or not, I feel like then makes me kicking them in the balls aloud.
I agree. He's in her home. What makes it okay?
In her home, in her space, it's never okay to step like that. Anyway, he snaps, Bryce snaps right back, and I appreciate it. Now we're going to go into a section where in my notes I have it called literally Tharion is a dick. My TED Talk. Quote, Tharion took another challenging step towards the door, but Bryce said, you can't drop all that information and expect me to not do anything, not to go looking for this kid. Tharion arched a brow. So soft-hearted. Stay out of it, legs. Inherently, the word soft-hearted is gender neutral. I understand that. However, when you think about the term and how it's used, it is often directed towards women. It is like, it just, unfortunately, like, you don't read in books, you don't see in media the depiction of soft-hearted men. Women are considered to be the ones who are soft-hearted, and that means that they're not able to use logic and they're focusing more on their emotions. Again, something that the, media will describe as being a very female thing to do, which is bullshit.
Another way of saying it is it's a very feminine aspect.
Very feminine aspect. Again, bullshit. If I was led by my emotions, a lot more chaos would have happened. Ultimately, though, like, this is Tharion trying to make Bryce weaker. And Tharion brings this up. Like, it has sexist undertones. And you don't need to be a sexist individual to have sexist tendencies or to do something that is sexist. Mm. And the term and the idea soft-hearted is not an insult. Like, there should be nothing about that word that is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And yet in this moment, it is. It is Tharion's intent to insult Bryce. Your emotions are getting in the way of you. That's so sweet. It's so condescending of him too. Like, that's really cute of you. Mm-hmm. Move along. The boys will take care of this.
I agree with what you're saying about feminine versus masculine when it comes to being soft-hearted. I also want to say in the context of the fact that Bryce is the only half-human or human at all individual in the room. Everybody has full veneer. Mm-hmm. Soft-hearted in this instance could also be a reference to humanity and human weakness. Humans die more easily. They have more to worry about than Vanir do. They don't live as long, so they have to think about things that Vanir probably don't have to think about in the grand scheme of things. I feel like Tharion's use of soft-hearted is mocking Bryce because she is human. Mm-hmm. And his own biases are coming out in that instance, just like all the other Vanir in her life have always treated her.
Yeah.
Think about I forget what chapter it is, chapter 4 in House of Earth and Blood, when the noble Fae at the restaurant looked down on Bryce because she's half human. It's no different in my mind than how Tharion's treating her right now.
I think this is just a good example of like when you take a piece of the text and you look at it through two different lenses.
Yeah.
Neither are wrong.
No.
It's just interpretation of the text.
Yeah.
And you looked at it through a power lens.
Yep.
I looked at it through a feminist lens. A quick moment for just general thoughts, please. Tharion is busy telling Bryce to leave this whole rebel business alone and the whole Emile thing alone. And it's coming out of his own selfish reasons. Hunt tells Bryce the Asteri ordered them to lie low. Not the same thing as Tharion saying, but it's also a warning to like not move forward. I feel like Bryce then groups these two threats, right? You have Tharion who's busy telling Bryce, leave it alone. And you have Hunt who's busy telling Bryce, like, hey, don't forget, we were warned not to. And at this point, in this moment, I feel like Bryce just sees the two of them as like men that are against her. Mm-hmm. Alpha holes who are against her, really. And I feel like that just makes her more primed to resent Hunt faster, to get more pissy with him. Because later on, and I'll point it out, he's very much like, I just want to talk about this with you.
Yeah.
And she is so closed off to him.
Yep.
And I think you can see the walls building right now.
Yep. I completely agree with you. I do think that in some ways, even though it's not overt, Bryce is grouping Tharion and Hunt together. Mm-hmm. And they're just Fendyr who don't care about humans, who don't care about this boy. And like you said, Bryce wrongly assumes Hunt's gonna fight her about it.
Yep.
We're gonna see that multiple times. She just knew there was a fight brewing. The fight, there was gonna be a fight coming, and she's on the defensive right now.
Yep.
And she's going to continue to be.
Yeah. And her choices and the way that she views him are coming from a defensive, hurt place.
Yeah.
When this whole business with Emile and everything, right? There's two things that are happening. You have Bryce, who is adamant about finding Emile. And on the flip side, you also have Hunt, who's going through his own stuff at this moment with a lot more PTSD. And we were just talking about the PTSD he had, and that was just talking about fixing a bike.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that brought up issues, what is this doing to him? Which I feel like SJM did that to make a point.
Yeah.
Too, of like, hey, this bike and offering to fix it, he didn't do well reminiscing there.
Right. That's triggering.
Yeah. And now you have this where it's like throwing him back into the mix. There's a lot that he's figuring out. But going back to Emile, right? The Emile of it all, and Bryce being worried about Emile, it is admirable, right? She doesn't want Emile to become, quote unquote, a child soldier. And, quote, to let this boy be hunted by so many people she couldn't sit by, not for an instant.
So I'm going to interrupt Jac's thoughts just to preview the fact that you and I are both going to talk about how Bryce views herself and Emile.
Yeah.
And in this particular quote, I wanted to point out, Emile being hunted by so many people is not much different than the fact that Bryce and her own mother were hunted by the Autumn King's men when they were on the run from him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So just pointing that out.
No, I mean, that's a good point. Like, we'll get into the reasons more, but like, spoiler, Bryce sees Emile as her.
Yeah.
And is she really doing it out of pure intentions? Well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. So now to go into Hunt's PTSD. Hunt says, quote, "This is a lethal game, Tharion. One I'd rather not play again." Bryce could have sworn his hands shook slightly. This had to be dragging up the worst of his memories and fears. He'd been a rebel once. It had won him 200 years of servitude. This is Bryce's point of view. She sees this. She can see his hands shaking. Have you ever been with someone who's like so upset that their hands are shaking? I have a few times in my life. And it is scary when like they're so upset that they can't even contain anything. And he's trying to put up that front, but she's clocking these things. She is aware of his pain, what caused it, the magnitude of it. And it's immediately then followed by her not willing to sit by and want to watch it. Like, she's like, wow, this is really upsetting for him. Fuck you. Like, I can't stand this. I have to fight for him. I feel like she then uses Ithan as a weapon and as a tool against Hunt, in opposition of Hunt, I should say.
Yeah.
I think it's important that Ithan agrees with Bryce about Emile. Quote, "There's a kid out there on the run who probably has nothing to do with Ophion and needs help. Thank you," Bryce said, whirling to Hunt. See? Hunt already sees Ithan as a threat. Like, he just slept in the same bed with Bryce the night before. He shows up out of nowhere. He's like, that morning, Ithan was going around swinging his dick, being like, my brother couldn't get with her after 5 years. You're barely with her 5 months. Fuck you, blah, blah. And here she is saying, like, look, see, he agrees with me. That is
move.
not what you do.
Yeah, I agree.
At all. Like, how Hunt is standing, I'll never know.
Yeah. And I just use this moment to say, once again, this is why Ithan and Bryce cannot be together.
Yeah.
They would run straight into danger without a second thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Hunt and Bryce are starting to not be aligned, if you guys can't tell yet. I feel like we might be getting some clues of discourse here. Discourse. I said it right. Discord. Quote, "Leave it alone, Bryce," Hunt warned. "I don't even know why you had to ask about any of this." Now, sorry, before I keep going, like at this point, Tharion dropped the Sofie truth bomb and the Danika's related to Emile. I know we kind of grazed past what was being said. We're assuming that everyone remembers. So I just wanted to
That's fair.
Reiterate that. So this is like, Bryce, the second Bryce hears Danika's involved, she's like, wait, what? Yeah. What's going on? So, which is why Hunt tells her, "Leave it alone, Bryce," Hunt warned. "I don't even know why you had to ask about any of this." "I don't know why you wouldn't ask," Bryce challenged. Bryce is going to struggle respecting Hunt.
Yeah.
Because for Bryce, this is such a clear and obvious answer. And it's so hard because it's like, on one hand, you're not wrong. Like, you should help a child. On the other hand, there are a lot of valid reasons not to.
Yeah.
And she's not willing to hear any of it out.
We've established so far that Bryce gets off on Hunt backing her, so it makes sense that right now she's mad because he's not backing her. And I think what I'm going to get into a little bit later just dawned on me is the fact that, yes, Hunt has PTSD. Bryce recognizes what's happening to him because of his PTSD, but she has her own trauma, and she does not go to therapy, so she has to resolve her trauma.
Yeah.
Because her trauma trumps his trauma because she's only experienced her trauma.
Yep.
And so for Hunt, unwilling to fight for a kid she identifies with, gets at her trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. Bryce really does handle her own trauma in a very young way.
Yeah.
And I'm happy she's not 19. I'm happy that she's older when it comes to older. She's still like 25.
Yeah.
But she is still very young. Mm-hmm. You know, there's not an understanding that other people are going through shit too.
Yeah.
It is very self-focused, but what about my stuff?
Yeah.
What about, and it's like, yes, your things are important and valid too, but hello, other people exist in the world here.
Right. Which gets at the point that Hunt is going to make later on, which is, can we just have a conversation?
One conversation. So let's get into the real reasons why Bryce is hunting Emile. Hunt asks if it's about Emile or Danika, and Bryce says both. It makes, I mean, do we even need to cover the Danika of it? Like, I think it makes sense. It's like, oh, Danika's involved? More lies? What?
Yeah.
I must continue. That makes sense. I don't think we need to analyze that too much. Now, when it comes to Emile, quote, was Emile hungry? He was a kid, alone in the world, having suffered in one of those godforsaken camps, no family left. He has to be terrified, traumatized. She hoped Sofie was alive. Not for any intel or amazing powers, but so Emile had someone left, family who loved him for him, and not for being some all-powerful chosen one whose people had long ago been hunted to extinction. It's like, sorry, Bryce, I didn't realize we were talking about you. I didn't realize we shifted the conversation to you here. Like, people who died, all-powerful person, hunted into extinction. Like, okay here, sweetie. Like, we know... You know, you can talk to a therapist. Like, you can get help. And let me give you one more quote before we really get talking about it. When Bryce goes through Sofie's emails between her and her brother, quote, Bryce swallowed hard. Such an ordinary exchange. Proof of a normal, decent life. What did we say earlier? I think was it either episode or episode before? But basically, normal equals human. Mm-hmm. Human is what she wants to be. Human is what she has been forced to no longer have any kind of claim to. Of course, like, she's looking at them being like, oh, they had it all.
Yeah. Yeah, and they lost it all.
Yep.
Just like Bryce has lost it all. Mm-hmm. So, Emile, how old is he?
13.
13? How old was Bryce when she went to the Oracle and got abandoned by her father?
I'd say 13.
13.
Yeah.
That was the first time she went to Lunathian, just like this is the first time Emile is in Lunathian. Mm-hmm. When Bryce was 13, she was abandoned at the Oracle. No one could help her, not even Rune. Rune could only just give her money for a cab.
Yeah.
After the Autumn King kicked Bryce out of his home. In my mind, Emile's a dead ringer for Bryce as a child. Part of that is because she assumes he's half human with a deep, dirty secret.
Yep.
That he's got a ton of power, just like Bryce had a deep, dark secret that she was starborn. Mm-hmm. Bryce, in my mind right now, not only does she see herself in Emile, she wants to do what Rune tried to do for her, which was help get the kid to safety.
Yep.
Is it then any surprise that Bryce becomes Emile's brother or sister in the future?
She's like, you're mine now.
Yeah.
We are one.
You belong to me. Let me go one step further. When Tharion says that Emile would be safe with the River Queen beneath, Bryce responds, quote, so he'd be used by your queen like some kind of weaponized battery instead? Like, hell am I going to let you do that? Again, just like Jac said. Okay, Bryce, talking about yourself, right? Yeah. She's projecting herself and what she supposed the Autumn King would do with her starbornness onto Emile and the River Queen. I think this is important because in this conversation, in thinking about Emile as herself, the River Queen and Ophion are starting to become equivalent to the Autumn King in Bryce's mind. And I think that's going to be important for Bryce's future interactions.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I suspect.
I think so too. I think that's fair to say.
Thanks.
You know, it feels like we're just like talking about the same subjects, but we are.
But we are.
But we are, and it's not our fault. SJM did this. I want to reiterate how obvious Hunt's PTSD is while we're still in Bryce's point of view. As Hunt keeps warning her, quote, Bryce opened her mouth, but a muscle flickered in his cheek, making the bruises there all the more noticeable. Guilt punched through her, warring with her ire. I'll think about it, she conceded and stalked for her bedroom. Again, Bryce is aware of his trauma, but Bryce's trauma is linked to Emile, and that's all she cares about right now is her trauma. And because this is disguised as protecting a kid, she's morally not wrong.
Right.
And I think that's what makes SJM a good writer. Because talk about a situation where would you do what Bryce is doing, or be like, you know what, we were told to lay low. I'll pray for him. I can't say I would go and hunt for Emile. I'm pretty sure I'd be scared of what the Starry told me to do.
Yeah.
And I'd lie low. Like, I'd be like, wow, life has been decent. I'm going to keep here, staying here.
Yeah.
You know, let me know if there's anything I can do. But not try too hard.
Yeah. I mean, Bryce, like you said earlier, would love to be normal.
Yeah.
Normal has been taken away from her. We're going to see that again when Bryce meets up with Juniper and Fury as well. I think in the next chapter. So it's very infuriating how dedicated Bryce is to Emile without having only heard about the kid within the last 10 minutes. And what this is showing me is that Bryce is unable to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
As soon as she identifies empathy or sees herself in someone else, she can't let go. And that inability to let go is really going to hurt Hunt.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't see her in these people.
Yeah.
The way that she sees herself. That's what I got.
No, I mean, I think it's a good point. It's just like, it's hard. And again, this is the talent of SJM. But it's hard because Bryce is doing the quote unquote good thing to help a child. It's not with good intentions necessarily. It's so clouded with her own issues that it no longer becomes about just Emile, even though all she keeps telling everyone else is like, think about the kid.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great, tricky thing for SJM to do where it's like, what are we going to do? Argue Bryce doesn't save a kid?
Right.
I mean, a little bit. I'm not saying it's a good call. I'm just saying that it would be like, you're doing a hell of a thing to be like, I'm going to risk everything. Not just me, but everyone else in my life, which is something Bryce still hasn't grasped yet.
Yeah.
That Hunt gets where it's like, hey, you want to do this. Your parents, your friends, you, everyone around you, everyone will die because you're deciding to go after a kid that you've never met before. That you don't even know is alive or not.
Yep. It is pretty selfish.
It is very, and that's, and the beauty of it, from a writing perspective, is that it's the most selfish choice. She's making the most selfish choice when doing the most selfless thing.
Yeah.
And that's sticky and messy.
Yeah. And SJM does it really, really well.
Yeah.
You know what she also does really well is her use of food as power.
Yeah.
So, mind you, one thing we did not mention is the fact that Rune has showed up.
Oh, yeah.
Gets the whole story, is staying for pizza. And Hunt leaves to go take a shower. Quote, if she needed a moment, he sure as hell needed a lot longer. Okay, so Bryce is aware of Hunt's trauma and that he's going through it and that he needs space. Not a good look for her. What does Bryce do? Bryce orders pizza for everyone. And we could view this as giving strength back. You know, let's rally the troops. Let's eat. We'll all feel better afterward. Now, I want to actually look at this differently. While this could be a classic food as power moment, I want to suggest that the pizza is just a Band-Aid. It's a comforting gesture rather than real power. Pizza, I'm afraid to say it, folks, is
empty
not
carbs.
A healthy option.
They call it empty carbs. And I see with the Band-Aid of it, where it's like, I've never once eaten pizza and walked away feeling full.
or better about yourself.
No, I always walk away being like with a tummy ache and still willing to eat more slices.
Yeah, exactly. Same. It's a comfort food. It's a part of a routine. They have pizza night. It's pizza night.
Yeah.
This is what Bryce says to everybody. It's pizza night. Gotta have pizza. Again, another act of Bryce trying to return to normal in spite of news about Sofie, Emile, and Danika. It's pizza night. I gotta get pizza. Ultimately, this is an attempt to return to normalcy, and it's just masking the root of the problem. And that is what Bryce wants.
Yeah.
What Bryce wants is the problem.
It is. It's what Bryce wants and what Bryce is not willing to do.
Yeah.
The worst part is like, she doesn't have to do much.
Mm-hmm.
It's just talk.
Yeah.
But she won't even do that. We are finally in Hunt's point of view. And this is just, I think it's like one page, this little section. And it's a lot. And I'm just going to read a series of quotes from, again, just this one section. Quote, he couldn't stop shaking, couldn't stop the surge of acid through his veins that made every breath torturous. Another quote, he knew it was irrational to be pissed at her about it because part of why he adored her was that she was the kind of person who would want to help. But fucking hell. And then, he couldn't let it happen again. If all of it had been for Bryce to get here, then it had happened so that he'd know when to walk away and keep her safe. And then finally, that warm water felt an awful lot like blood. He's hurting. He's hurting. And even in his most intense moment of hurt, he still understands her.
Mm-hmm.
He still is like, I get why she's doing this and I love her for it.
Yeah.
He is in this moment, not like he's feeling his feelings, he's feeling his pain.
Yeah.
And still considers her.
Yeah. Which is crazy intense, but like commendable.
Yeah.
Because not everybody has that level of maturity to be like, I understand where my partner's coming from. Don't like it. Doesn't make me feel great, but I understand it and I still love them.
Yep.
It's a hard place to be. And I think what makes it harder for me is the fact that we're seeing Hunt in the shower again. And what did showers represent for Hunt in Earth and Blood? He usually completed a mission as the Umbra Mortis. He killed people and he needed to take a scalding shower to wash away his sins. And all this PTSD, all of these memories that he's reliving is taking him back to that place where he's trying to wash that trauma away by taking a shower. He's trying to mitigate his worries for Bryce by taking a shower instead of talking about it. And that's not his fault. Bryce won't talk about it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, the shower doesn't work. Like you said, the water feels like blood. And in reality, Hunt knows this. He's learned the shower, what it represents, is not an effective thing to achieve what he wants it to achieve, to wash away those sins. He learned in Earth and Blood that being vulnerable with Bryce is what is healing for him, and Bryce won't give him that space. So no wonder why, at this moment, we're seeing a bit of a regression, because he doesn't have access to the person he loves.
Yep.
Who allows him to be vulnerable.
Yep.
Just like he's allowed her to be vulnerable about Lahaba and all these other things and processing what happened.
Bryce won't give him an inch with it.
Nope.
She says that she gets it. She says like, oh, I feel bad. Like, or she doesn't even say it to him. She says it in her own mind.
Yeah.
You know, she never tells him like, hey, I really get you. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about it.
Exactly.
She looks away.
Yeah.
There's we don't have the exact quote, but there's like when they're talking about their ice cream and stuff, Hunt mentions that like she stays quiet.
Yeah.
And I know she's probably figuring out the right thing to say, but you know, it could be like, talk to me about it. Tell me about it. And the fact that he did regress to an Umbra Mortis shower, Bryce sent him to do an Umbra Mortis shower. Bro.
Yeah. And she's not there to take care of his naked body.
No.
It's unfair.
It is so unfair. It's unfair to us. We don't even need to read that.
So we leave Hunt in the shower, and then the pizza arrives. Quote, "Carnivore's delight," Bryce said with forced cheer to Hunt, sliding the meat on meat pizza toward him. He offered a smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Like I mentioned earlier, Bryce is maybe trying to give Hunt strength through the use of the pizza. Or she's putting a Band-Aid on a giant head wound that she caused.
With a forced, cheerful smile. Hi,
Yeah.
here you go.
Trying to be normal does not resolve trauma.
No.
It buries trauma.
Yep.
And Bryce is just burying the pain that Hunt is feeling right now.
Rune's there. Flynn and Deck show up. Ithan's there. They just need a quiet evening to themselves.
Yep. Now, does Bryce really think that by getting Hunt his favorite pizza, he will feel better? I don't know. You know, some people are really food motivated. Me in particular, like, maybe.
Yeah.
In this moment, it doesn't work for Hunt. So I don't know where Bryce's head is at.
Yeah.
This does not solve the problem. But let's switch over now to the fact that both Ithan and Hunt know Bryce's order, and they say it at the same time.
I want to order this pizza.
It's my mom's favorite pizza.
I'm personally a black olives and onions girly with garlic on there, but I'm willing to try sausage and onions. It sounds delicious.
It's my mom's favorite.
I think we get pizza this week in honor of Bryce, even though she pisses me off right now.
We'll see if my glucose allows me.
Oh, right.
You know, food is power, is knowledge, is love, blah, 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 blah. Or Ithan is swinging his dick around and is trying to exert ownership over Bryce when really it's Hunt who
knows her.
Who knows her. Like, Ithan, just keep your mouth shut.
It's just so, like, you haven't talked to her in 2 years.
Yeah. Back off, bro.
Yeah.
You don't belong here.
No.
Speaking of not belonging here, while everyone's eating in silence, Rune offers to take Ithan in.
Sorry. I was about to say, like, we should... You already know my pizza order. I want to say your pizza order. A gluten-free crust. A gluten-free pizza, no cheese.
With?
Sauce.
And?
Onions.
No.
Sausage. Protein. You're not going to tell me.
I will tell you. Pepperoni. So it is a gluten-free pizza, no cheese, extra sauce, pepperoni, Italian sausage, and jalapenos.
Right. I do remember that. I'm just stuck on the no cheese every time. Because whenever you'll be like, I have pizza in the fridge. And I say, is it your pizza? Or
Does it have cheese?
Or is it Emma's?
I just can't allow my body to have cheese. It just does unfortunate things to me.
No, I know. It's just, it's unfortunate that your body has to then do acts against God himself.
So Rune offers to take Ithan in a silent conversation with Bryce. I really wonder about this. And he has political reasons for suggesting it, which I think are completely valid.
Yeah.
However, I also think Rune loves his sister deeply. And I think in some ways wants to spare Bryce and Hunt the tension that they have by taking Ithan out of the equation.
Obvious the amount of tension there, yeah.
Right. And, you know, Ithan also treated Bryce like shit, so he doesn't deserve to be there. And on the other hand, I also think Rune probably, potentially, feels some empathy for Ithan. Rune has been abused. He's felt alone. I can see him projecting that onto Ithan as well. And maybe as an 80-something-year-old, he really wants to take that 20-something-year-old under his wing and...
He's like, it's time to have kids.
I'm talking about Ithan and Rune.
No, I know. Okay. his giant child. I do want to, like, keep in mind, I just, like, a thought that popped up is, like, Rune has probably never spoken to Ithan.
No, probably not.
He probably has never been in the same room as Ithan. And it's just like he does get a fresh start from it. Like he knows that Ithan hurt his sister, and I'm sure he's like protective of that. But there is a certain amount of like, there's no bad blood between them. Yeah. That Ithan and Rune get a clean slate with one another.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And it just makes Rune even more of a great guy. Rune is just...
I love Rune.
Rune is probably one of the best of SJM's characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I know he did some annoying things in book 1. Couldn't remember to tell you at all. I'm sure he did. But, like, he's just a guy that is so okay not being the main character.
Yeah. Yeah, we need more of those.
Truly.
Tharion, learn your place.
Genuinely. SJM, like she does before, and will continue to do, will always try to remind the reader that Bryce and Hunt are good, by bringing in these humorous moments. And, their end game, we're going to be okay. So in this moment, Hunt teases Bryce about realizing how, quote, truly obnoxious being a princess allows her to be. Bryce flipped him off. If I have to suffer through the title, then you have to suffer through the effects. And it's like, it's cute. We have these, it's almost like, wait, they're being quick. They're being back to normal. But it's just like, it's, you kind of have to do this as a writer. Otherwise, it's going to be tense the entire book. Yeah. We're only 144 pages in.
Yeah, there's a lot of tension ahead of us.
Yeah.
There's a point during the conversation they clink beers and they're still good. It is normal for people to have disagreements in relationships.
Yeah.
It's normal for people to not see eye to eye. Just so happens in this instance that it's a life or death situation.
Yeah.
However, Bryce and Hunt still love each other.
Yeah, it is normal to go through fights and still love each other. Theirs is just so bad. But we'll get to it.
I think that also, like you said, speaks to Bryce's youth.
Yeah.
And lack of experience. Whereas Hunt is, unfortunately, full of experience. Unfortunately for him, because it's all bad experience.
No, right? Fortunately, he's full of experience, which unfortunately are bad. Yeah, that's fair.
I also want to say that Hunt alluding to her title as princess is also a little bit of foreshadowing that Bryce will use her title to her advantage in the future to get what she wants. And also, Hunt's really going to suffer because of her princessness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But then he becomes prince.
Not worth it. Just saying.
Yeah, that's fair.
He doesn't get to enjoy those benefits very long.
No, he does not. Amy already kind of answered some of my questions on this, but who gets to flirt with Bryce? And, because at the one point now Tharion and Flynn are there, and when Flynn slides a key into his pocket, he tells Bryce, "Come get it, baby cakes." Hunt shot the Fey Lord a glare, and Declan snickered. "Careful, Flynn." I think you did a good job. You swayed me.
He's Fendyr hierarchies.
Yeah. You convinced me, and I think it's still funny.
I think it's hilarious. Flynn thinks he can get away with it.
Yeah.
He's got a death wish.
I would have, the only thing that would have made that moment perfect is if Rune had smacked the back of his head too.
Yeah, that would have been great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would have been good.
We then get like a little backstory about Rune's ordeal, because the topic of ordeals come up, which it's like, let me forget about it. It's the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah. There's
no official sign. You don't suddenly start glowing blue. You don't get your pointy ears after. Like, no one knows what your ordeal is.
Yeah.
I had food poisoning the other week.
That's your ordeal.
And it was aggressive.
That was your ordeal.
That was my ordeal. So we get Rune kind of giving a little history lesson about his ordeal, and we get a bunch of breadcrumbs here.
Yeah, and we're not going to list them here. I put a few in the actual breadcrumbs of this episode, but I'm going to skip over that.
Yeah.
I think what's important to me about this conversation is that Ithan, Flynn, and Declan have some quips back and forth, and we're starting to establish their trio, their relationship.
Yeah.
And the fact that Rune's encouraged by their interactions, that they don't come to blows immediately. So I think that's just, good setup for what happens later.
Yeah, yeah. The very end of the chapter.
Oh my gosh, we're there.
I know. My God. The very end of the chapter has Hunt putting his foot down and says that he's bunking with Bryce. And Ithan doesn't challenge it. If anything, he kind of in my mind, agrees, not forfeits, but kind of is like, yes, she's yours.
Yeah.
Because he's like, good, she snores. Immediately leans into it. There's no dick swinging. There's none of that happening. But I'm just I hate being impressed with Ithan, but in this moment I am. It will go away. Bryce allows it. And to me, it shows that Hunt needs to have some part of Bryce to himself. If Bryce sleeping with Ithan was in the same bed the night before was to keep an eye on him and to keep him safe, then this is the same thing for Hunt. He needs to keep an eye on her. He needs to keep her safe.
I think it's a great point. And I think, what we're seeing here is Hunt exerting not his dominance, but his needs. I need this.
Yeah.
I think part of Ethan's reaction is understanding. He is very perceptive.
Yeah.
He noticed that Rune and Bryce were having a secret silent conversation without knowing that Rune could mind speak.
Yeah.
So he's able to read people. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ithan was noticing how Hunt was being triggered.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, bro, like,
You need this.
You need this. I don't.
Yeah. I also feel like, which we'll get into the next chapter, Hunt was probably expecting some like slumber party talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the lights
Yeah.
turn off and you
Yeah.
kind of like, so tonight was a really good night. You know, you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
just
yeah,
start,
yeah.
you start talking when the lights are off and stuff.
Yeah.
I have no doubt he probably was thinking that there would be some of that.
And yet,
Bryce. And yet. So that was, how long did that take us?
an hour and 15 minutes?
Oh my God. Yay us. An hour and 15 minutes to cover one freaking chapter. I hate this chapter so much. I hate that there's just so much good stuff to it.
Mm-hmm.
Why keep it all in one chapter?
I don't know. My thought process was that it's as meandering as the rest of the journey is about to be.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't explain why it couldn't have been broken up.
Yeah.
I genuinely draw a blank. I don't know.
Because where do we even start? When they're walking home, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's like maybe it's to experience the same whirlwind.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, it's a lot of information really fast, all within the span of an hour or two.
It's a stylistic choice for sure.
Yeah.
SJM isn't
absolutely.
afraid of cutting chapters down and
Yeah.
keeping them long. And only because we're doing an analysis of it do I have such anger towards it. Would I have the same feeling? Probably not. If I was just reading this casually. I don't remember hating this chapter.
I don't either.
It's when everything starts.
Right.
It's when the plot begins.
And maybe that's why it's so long.
Yeah,
Is
because this is where the
because
plot begins.
This is the turning point between normal
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of the book.
Yeah. Amy, what's that?
An ad break.
We'll be right back.
Nice.
Amy, when we got the call that HelloFresh would be sponsoring this episode, I think I screamed because I love HelloFresh.
I was so excited as well. There's a reason why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit.
HelloFresh makes life so much easier. And when we got our HelloFresh box, I was reintroduced with how amazing and tasty the food is.
What's great about them is you get more than enough for just yourself. You can cook for your partners or your roommates, and there's plenty to go around.
I absolutely hate planning my weekly meals. You also have to then go grocery shopping and you have to get the right ingredients and try to not spend $200 in the grocery store. And HelloFresh just cuts all of that out. They bring you fresh ingredients and recipes so that you can cook all of these meals at home. It's so easy. You don't even have to be an experienced chef to know what you're doing. The instructions are so clear.
And what I love most about it is there's always just the right amount of produce or product, and nothing goes to waste.
When I cooked with HelloFresh this past week, I did not throw away a single item that I did not eat.
And it's not like you get the same meal every week. HelloFresh has a changing menu of 50 recipes to choose from, and those are changing constantly. So it makes it easy to find something that you actually crave.
And it's great because they have so many different customizable options to fit with your family. So if you want to get the veggie option and then swap in protein, you easily can. I got the veggie week option. I split it with my roommate. She had an absolute blast and was asking for when our next HelloFresh box is coming in, which I'm like, excuse me, think I'm sharing with you the second time?
Get your own box. What's nice is if you are a single person, you don't have a family, HelloFresh customizes the serving sizes. There are servings for just 2 people, so for you and your leftovers tomorrow, or up to 6 portion sizes for families.
And for a limited time, kids eat free. They sent us the kids meal too.
I freaking loved it.
I enjoyed that so much. It was the perfect snack for me.
Go to HelloFresh.com/BookTalkKids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while your subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/BookTalkKids. BookTalkkids.
One of my absolute favorite hobbies is my skincare routine. I take the time every single day to take care of my skin, and as I've gotten older, I've really had to up my skincare game.
You've really inspired me with skincare because I will admit I thought it was only for my dad when I was growing up.
Really?
I hated skincare for years.
And I absolutely love taking time every night with my bedtime routine and my morning routine. And I absolutely love using OneSkin's topical face and eye cream. We've been using it for a couple weeks now, and I will say I have noticed a difference.
I have too. For the first time in years, someone asked me my age and I said 35 and they're like, whoa, you look way younger than that.
The eye cream specifically, I put it also between like on the bridge of my nose. And that was an area that I just have noticed. I'm like, oh, well, someone's looking a little bit more deflated there. Over these last couple of weeks since using OneSkin's eye cream, I have absolutely noticed a difference there.
I feel like all the age around my eyes and between my eyebrows has just melted away. It's now a must-have in my life. It's one of those products that you're like, yep, I'm never changing you.
The fact that they have over 8,000 5-star reviews speaks for itself.
Honestly, it does.
The beauty of OneSkin is that their topical supplements are powered by their own proprietary peptide. It's scientifically proven to target the dysfunctional senescent cells that start to accumulate around age 30, which I'm 34 now. Those things have been accumulating for 4 years now.
Time to get rid of them. For those of you who love science and clinical studies, in a third-party 12-week clinical study, OS1's face product was clinically proven to strengthen the skin barrier, improve skin health markers, and diminish visible signs of aging. Can you believe wrinkles were diminished in 87% of users?
So many other skincare products out there really just focus on the symptoms rather than targeting the root causes of aging.
OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using the code BOOKTALK at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with the code BOOKTALK, BOOKTALK.
After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support us and tell them Book Talk sent you.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
Chapter 13 begins, and, there's a lack of communication happening. Surprise!
Surprise, surprise.
Bryce has a horrible night's sleep. Good.
She deserves
it. Because she was too close and too aware of Hunt. Quote, they hadn't spoken about Tharion's visit or about her decision to find Emile. So any fight on that front was likely still on the horizon. She's not willing to communicate with him. She probably went straight to bed. Why? I know that's an assumption because we didn't see it, but I feel like we have enough examples that Hunt wants to talk and she doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, because Bryce has already made up her mind about Emile. At this point, I want to reiterate her decision to find Emile. That is implying closed, done. She's going forward with this, regardless of what's happening. So we can tell she's not going to be willing to hear anything from Hunt.
Right. And because she's already made her decision and is closed off to what Hunt has to say, she's expecting the worst from Hunt. He told her earlier he cannot be deprogrammed, so on some level maybe she's absorbed that, and she has therefore no faith in his ability to see her side of things, to have an adult conversation if it means that she's chosen to put herself in danger.
Yep.
And that's a lot of assumptions on Bryce's part.
Yeah. I mean, that perfectly goes into my next note. I just want to ask why, Bryce, why? Everything about her from this point on.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And I get why so many people have issues with her in this book.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people really loved Bryce in book 1.
Me?
Us? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who wants to go to the Orlando hotel? You were not on TikTok. No. And then the little baby goes, me. That was you. Me. Anyway, so it's like I get why people have such issues with her. I also understand why she's doing what she's doing.
Yeah.
She's traumatized, but regardless, still gonna shame her right now.
Because that's what we do best.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, let me rephrase. I'm still gonna analyze. When Bryce gets out of bed, she doesn't change. She comes into the living room and, quote, Ithan was smirking. Her lilac demi-thong left little to the imagination. Bryce stifled the urge to tug her shirt's hem over her half-bare ass. Her body, her choice, her apartment. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Still the absolute lack of consideration for Hunt.
Mm.
It's a lack of consideration for someone that he still feels threatened by. It's another man there. It's punishment to Hunt because his eyes darken. He gets to look at it. And it's also like she's letting others see, others being Ithan, because Hunt doesn't own her. So she can just show. And it's like, you know, at a certain point, and I get like her and Hunt aren't boyfriend, girlfriend right now, but like at a certain point, you have to be respectful of who you're with.
I agree.
Well, I'm still going.
Keep going.
My most powerful argument here is just asking for a UTI. You're sleeping in a thong. You gotta let it breathe out. Let it air.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So I know you're not going to like this. I don't know if I like it, but I do feel a need to not defend Bryce, but see a different side.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and this, my partner and I recently talked about this very fact.
You walking into a living room with us seeing you naked?
No, the fact that we've become so comfortable dressing in front of each other, being naked in front of each other, that when we're with other people, we have less qualms about being naked in front of them because our inhibitions are gone in general. The amount of times that I've accidentally gotten naked in front of my mother since I started dating Emma is intense.
Well, it's hard. Go ahead. No, keep going. I was going to bring a different memory in. It's like, remember with my ex, there was a moment where you and him were both in the living room and I started changing and he kind of gave me a look and I was like, let's be real. Everyone in this room has seen me naked.
It's the same.
It's true. It is the same, but like we're not secretly in love with each other.
No, it's true. But Bryce continues to deny the fact that Ithan has feelings for her.
True.
And
yeah, true.
When Bryce got out of bed, her first thought was to go to Hunt and go to get coffee.
Yeah.
Hunt is making coffee. I want to be near him.
Yes.
I'm going to suggest Bryce forgot Ithan even exists.
Yeah.
Like Rune talked about taking Ithan to his place. Like, to what extent did Bryce spend all night thinking about the Umbra Mortis beside her?
Yeah.
Forgot that Ithan existed.
I'm happy you're bringing this up because it like does annoy me and I don't want to be annoyed by it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I love the idea of like she just forgot that he exists. Her being in denial that he's in love with her is still annoying, but she wants to go to Hunt. She wants to just go straight there. I'm happy that you did bring that up because it is very, it makes me feel better. It just cracks me up. Like when friendship is so truly platonic, and that's why like it's easy I think it's easy amongst girls. Maybe men change in front of each other and I just don't know it.
Yeah, I think so.
But like the amount of times where it's like when you got your nipples re-pierced and I was like, let me look at them.
And I just lift my shirt.
Yeah, we were recording an episode and I just stared at you and you're like, I'm not showing you while we're recording. It's like, fine, don't. But it does. There's nothing more fun about being comfortable with someone where you can just start stripping and stuff and just start talking. Yeah. The amount of times I've been in your living room and I just start taking off clothes and you're like, the window's open.
It's true.
And I'm like,
they got a show.
Yeah. Good for them. But, you know, my point about UTIs still stand. You don't sleep with a thong.
That's fair. That's fair. I need to personally remember that one because I occasionally do. But I've never had a UTI. Choi.
I mean, it's also just like, you know, like it's just asking for a little yeast infection.
That's fair.
You know, it's a...
Let her free.
Let it free. I'm doing like, just wiggling my arms a little.
As we get further into the chapter, Bryce gets a phone call from her mother. And this is a moment where I want to remind all of us that information is power. And Bryce keeps forgetting to share information. And...
Forgetting or choosing not to?
Yeah, all of that is questionable. So she definitely kept her betrothal to Cormac from her mother.
Yeah.
She also was like, oh, I forgot to tell Ithan, probably because she didn't think it was important.
Yep.
Or that Ithan was important, one of the two.
Yep.
She also forgot to tell Hunt about Cormac's visit the day before. There is a moment prior to this chapter she thought about the fact she hadn't yet told Hunt about Cormac's visit. So I want to recognize she actively thought about it at one point. She has since failed. And so what happens? Both of these facts get revealed by Ember's phone call. And I just, you know, if Bryce could hear me, I would tell her what stays hidden or what you try to hide always finds a way out. Bryce should have learned that based on her investigation of Danika in Earth and Blood. She hasn't learned that lesson. And Bryce, by controlling the information, is trying to control everything else. She can't. It's leaking. Everyone is finding out everything. She can't be in control. So while Bryce speaks to her mom, she says, quote, but you gotta trust me to deal with it. She gave a look to Hunt as if to say, you too. Hunt nodded, getting it. Drank some more coffee, like he needed it. And you know what? He does. He does, because Bryce is about to be a little bit annoying.
You can tell she hasn't had any female friends in a long time.
Yeah.
The way I would be texting you and everyone else. So, and if like, okay, you can't text these things. It's super top secret. Great. Call me.
Yeah.
Like, I would never forget this in at all.
Yeah.
I would tell people so fast. My friends, not everyone. Bryce's argument with her mom, it's a big sticking point for me. And I'm going to admit I am biased. I like my mom. I argue with my mom. Sometimes I'm not, like, you know, my words are saucy and a little too straightforward with my mom. I get that. I've had to apologize to her a number of times, but I wouldn't do this to my mom. So let me just read some quotes here. You don't get a say in what I do or don't do. And if you're smart, you'll stay the hell out of this. You have no fucking idea what I've been through and faced and what I'm dealing with. So drop it. Now, this is my personal opinion. It's really hard to have the high horse in an argument when your argument is you don't know what I've been through, when the person isn't willing to talk about it, because now you're getting mad that they're not considering your experience despite the fact that you've never told them your experience.
Right.
And I get why Bryce feels like she can't do that because, like, you know, she has to keep her parents safe and stuff, but like she is not even trying to find a middle ground. It is going from like keeping them in the dark secret to exploding on her mom. And it's just not okay. I don't think so. Ember, I feel like, is allowed to freak out. She's been isolated from this knowledge. And Bryce decided that, like, to find out of nowhere that her daughter is engaged, like, that's a whole ass thing.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. And Ember's response to her is spicy. She says, quote, fine, we're still at your disposal should you need us, Your Highness. I'm biased, but I feel like Bryce deserved that one.
I agree. I mean, my note later is woof,
Yeah.
but it's not undeserved. Now, I go back to this idea of loss of control. So I personally, I also like my mother. I've not been far from having similar conversations like Bryce and Ember here with my own mother or my father. And that's because Bryce is not in a great place right now.
Yeah.
She's lashing out because there is a power differential. Bryce has lost control of information.
Yeah.
Which was a power she could control. And information is power. And we see that loss of control as metaphor as well with Bryce's loss of control over her starlight. Quote, she couldn't stop herself, couldn't halt the roiling, rising power that made her begin to simmer as if it were a pot boiling over with liquid starlight. I want to suggest that part of the reason why she can't control this is A, it's fueled by so much emotion, but B, it's also not fueled by Hunt.
Yeah.
It's something internal.
Yep.
Whereas if she was supplied power by Hunt in this moment, maybe she could control it. I also think it's funny that after Ember calls Bryce, Your Highness, Ithan then calls Bryce, Mom. I feel like that has to sting a little bit.
Yeah. And like this argument is intense. Like we haven't heard her this intense with her mom before. Yeah. Like they've always butt heads, but this was a bad one.
Yeah.
And Bryce is revved up from her argument and she takes it out on Hunt. Hunt asks why she didn't tell him about Cormac. Now I want to know, it's described that his expression is wary. That implies he's scared to ask this question.
Yeah.
So what does she say to that? She says it's because of Hunt's fight. And then says, quote, spare me the territorial male act, okay? And then Hunt replies, hide shit from your parents all you want, but don't keep stuff from me. We're a team. I forgot. No big deal. Hunt hesitated. All right. Okay. Sorry.
Jac is holding her head.
I just have so many feelings and none of them are good. I'm mad that she's fake character and I don't get to yell at her.
Yeah.
Because Hunt is valid. Like that is a valid ass question.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me? It's a big thing. It is and I get a million things have happened since, but like, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, that Cormac ambushed her at work.
That's it. That's big.
That's big.
They slept in the same bed all night. She could have said something.
She could have whispered it in the dark.
Cormac showed up at work. Like just something.
I forgot to tell you.
I'm really sorry. Blink once if you heard me. You know, but the thing is, that's like not what she does.
Right.
And what really gets me though is the fact that her defensiveness comes through, shows that there's guilt. Yeah. On her part. Because one of my favorite things, I can't remember who said it to me, but like the truth doesn't get angry. Mm-hmm. If she truly forgot, if it was like, if she like was like, oh my God, she didn't feel guilty about it, it would just be like I really did forget. I am so sorry. She should be the one apologizing. Instead, he's the one apologizing. Like I don't think he needs to apologize to say, hey, we're supposed to be a team that she's the one who established and instigated. We're a team.
Yeah. Hunt apologizes just to keep the peace.
Yeah.
Just so that he can have a conversation with her later.
And that's not fair for him to have to do that either.
Right.
Like, you know, he wants to be able to talk to her and he has to sacrifice that. And like saying apologizing shouldn't ever have to be considered like a win-lose sacrifice.
Right.
When it's earned. Mm-hmm. You know, it's very annoying. But his maturity does come through because he wants to talk about it. He asks why things are weird between them. And Bryce says, are things weird? Don't play stupid. Come on, last night was weird. Right now is fucking weird. Bryce leaned against the door. Sorry. It was all she could say. I don't believe those sorries for a minute.
No, not at all.
And my note is, your age is showing, Bryce, how young you are. And she's not willing to talk about it or understand it. And I don't think she knows what she's sorry for. I think she's saying words that she knows are probably right to say and what he wants to hear, but she has no desire to continue the conversation.
Well, and she has no feeling behind it. They're just empty words.
Yeah.
They're a courtesy apology so that he'll get off her back.
Yep. And Bryce is a total hypocrite too, because as they're like getting ready, you know, they're kind of like walking down the street together, and she tells Hunt, quote, no more fights. We need to keep a low profile. Like, Bryce isn't wrong, but Bryce, you're also trying to find an Ophion rebel. Associated rebel, like a brother of a rebel who's potentially a Thunderbird. But don't you fight.
Yeah. Well, the irony here is that while she is talking about Hunt fighting with Pollux and Baxian at work, she's doing all the fighting between the two of them.
Yeah.
Bryce has assumed for a while now that she and Hunt were going to fight about the Emile factor.
Mm-hmm.
And who's doing the fighting? It's Bryce.
Yeah.
She fights with him first because she expects a fight. That's usually how people act.
Mm-hmm.
If they've got it in their mind that, Jac, you're going to fight with me because I used your lipstick. Well, I'm just going to fight with you about the fact that you never gave me back that other lipstick ever before.
Yeah.
I'm making shit up, by the way.
I know. I was like, I don't think we use the same lipstick.
We don't.
But now I want to.
Bryce fights with Hunt because that is something she can control. She can control when the fight happens by fighting with him first.
Yeah.
And she does that because she can't control the information that has since been leaked. So might as well control the fight. Like you said, Bryce, I was about to call you Bryce. Like you said, Jac, Hunt wins because he's a team player. He wants to talk and understand. He wants to reason things out. But Bryce is not in a reasonable state of mind.
Yep.
Hunt tells Bryce, quote, "We need to talk about Emile. Shadows darkened his eyes, and her heart strained, knowing what memories caused them. But here it was, the discussion she'd been waiting for. I know you want to help, and I commend you for it, Bryce, but I think we really need to weigh everything before we jump in." Hunt is not saying we won't jump. He just wants to know that they've communicated about their reasons, and they've thought through all the factors, and which way is the wind blowing before we jump?
It's so reasonable.
It's so reasonable.
It's so reasonable. Just to add the cherry on top of his reasonableness, his final parting words to her are, quote, "Tharion threw me off last night. It dragged up a lot of old shit for me and worries for you. But if you want to move forward with this, let's talk it through first." It hurts because we know Bryce is going to go behind Hunt's back.
Yep.
Now, I think she will have valid reasons that Hunt does not view humans the way that she views human. However, no man has showed more "I'm willing to learn" than Hunt right now.
Yeah.
He's willing to, he's willing to go along with things. So if you kind of say to him, look, I think it's important because he's a human. I think it's important because of this. Whatever the reasons, he'll do it. You just have to talk to him. He's willing to learn and talk about things, but ultimately Bryce betrays her faith in him, not just his trust.
I completely agree with you. While there is a time pressure looking for Emile, she almost creates an artificial pressure on the hunt for him, because I wouldn't be surprised if it only took one conversation with Hunt to bring him along. And bringing him along on her journey and helping him understand why this is important to her is so important for the long term of their relationship.
Yep.
One conversation is not a big sacrifice on her part.
Yeah.
Yet she's not willing to do it.
I mean, book 3 would have been a lot smoother had they just been willing to talk about things.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of that is one, I get it, tension, that's important. I wonder if it would have been better for them to have figured that out in this book and let the third book just be plot playing out.
Yeah. I don't know. It was definitely a choice on SJM's part.
It was.
To leave out that conversation from this book.
Yeah. I mean, because a big part of book 3 is still Bryce saying, hey, I need you to get on board with this. And she's been saying that to him since now.
Right.
And, she's not willing to talk about it now. And eventually she's willing to talk about it in book 3. But I don't think the book would have lost any value had that not been an argument in book 3. There was a lot of other stuff that people were working through.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other characters that are working through emotional stuff that I think it would have been okay to have. Now, this is me having read that book once.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been okay to let them be at a much more stable place.
And I think only our analysis of this book
and the next book.
And the next book eventually is really going to help us understand whether or not SJM could have fit that conversation in here rather than Flame and Shadow.
Yeah.
And I will be curious to see what our conclusion is.
Yeah, because right now, their relationship and their tension is a plot point.
Right. It is a plot device.
Yeah.
Essentially. It's not... I don't know.
I think it's a plot point.
Yeah, it is a plot point.
Yeah.
It's a plot point. I don't necessarily like it.
No, but I get it.
I get it.
Like, they fell in love. They're trying to figure out the relationship. There should be tension
right.
as they figure it out. As someone who hasn't read the second book twice, as someone who hasn't finished even halfway through this analysis.
Third book
twice, yeah. Or someone who hasn't finished this book in the analysis completely. I'm wondering if my opinion will change. Currently, my opinion is it probably should have been resolved here.
In this book.
Yeah,
I agree.
So now Bryce meets up with Juniper and Fury. Juniper's about to leave. And I just want to point out, like, Juniper's sad because, like, oh no, I got passed up as lead dancer. Oh no, poor me. I'm so mad. And then, it just not a big no. I just want to point this out because later on, Juniper is going to be a little pissy about nepotism and she needs to learn to embrace it. I embrace it. If anyone would like to use their nepotism on me, I welcome it.
Sorry, I have none to give.
I know. Oh, I know. Just your love of nepotism. Your nepotistic love for me? I don't know.
So I want to suggest that Juniper is a metaphor for Bryce, not only now, but in the future. And we start that metaphor off here with Bryce yearning for normal when she sees Juniper with her dance gear in her bag about to go to practice. Quote, Bryce had known the high of performance well. She had been the best dancer in town in their entire mountainous region. And yeah, ultimately, she didn't think she could have lasted as long as Juniper, but seeing the fawn standing there, some part of her yearned. I think subconsciously, Bryce knows that the conversation she's about to have with Fury about Emile, Sofie, Danika, and their connections is probably going to ruin any possibility of Bryce ever having a normal life again.
Yeah.
Just before that conversation takes place, she longs for normal. She remembers home. She remembers her childhood. I think that that's important as a mental closing of a chapter for Bryce. Like, her life can never be that way.
Yeah.
And never will be again.
Yeah.
What Bryce doesn't see is that Juniper and Juniper's inability to become principal is actually a warning for Bryce. So Juniper, during the bunker scene in Earth and Blood, fought with the rich people to keep the bunker open so that some humans could get in. And Bryce thinks, basically, in summary, I'm paraphrasing, if you question the status quo will squash you.
Yeah.
Like, if you question the rich people are going to make sure you can't get principal at the ballet.
And she's not wrong.
She's not wrong. So let's think of this as metaphor. The nobility are the Asteri and Juniper is Bryce. Bryce can't see that connection right now. She sees Juniper as a victim.
Yeah.
It's a shame because it is a really good metaphor for Bryce and the choices she's about to make. Quote, for a dancer in Valbara, CCB was the pinnacle, the distant star to aspire to, and June had been so close enough to touch that glimmer of principal dancer. Now she was in free fall. Juniper never says she's in free fall. Bryce is projecting her own feelings onto Juniper.
So true.
If we look at this as metaphor, Bryce was so close to normal.
Yeah.
And she is now not allowing herself that. The Asteri are not allowing herself that. And now she is in free fall.
Yeah.
I think that's a glimpse into Bryce's true state of being right now that she's not willing to admit even to herself. Like, she is in free fall, but she's not going to convey that to anyone.
No. Bryce and Fury talk about Danika being with the rebels, and when Fury says that she doesn't know anything about it, quote, Bryce nearly sagged with relief. Maybe it hadn't gone too far then. On some level, Bryce is concerned about Danika sharing info with Fury again and not her, I think. I think it's like, it's just another sign of like Danika trusted Bryce or not.
Yeah.
And again, it comes from a selfish place.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it's the wrong question. Doesn't mean that it's not the right one. It means there's still some selfish origins to it.
Yeah.
And I can get it. I totally get that. Although we do find out in this moment that Danika's a bloodhound and, that's going to come back into play. It's like, here's a nice little moment for you to think about later. And at this point, there's a certain amount of self-awareness when Fury asks Bryce what she plans to do with this information. Once she learns the truth, Bryce says, quote, pray to Chthona that I accept it, I guess. Same, babe. I pray that you get it too.
I I know a lot of people really struggle with Sky and Breath because of the Danika element and how it feels like the same storyline coming back. I actually, for the first time in reading these chapters, wondered, is Danika's connection to all of this a cover for how Bryce truly feels about Emile and Sofie and her loss of normal? Because these are two humans who have powers like her.
But they get to actually pass as human.
And she never does.
Yep.
The chasing Danika and Danika's connections, I think, is a trauma response.
Yeah.
Look at Earth and Blood.
Yep.
It was a way to cope with her trauma. I think that's the same here. I think there are other deep-seated problems that Bryce is covering with... Yeah, I want to know what Danika really knew. I want to know what Danika was hiding.
And if you also think about it, like, she left off the last book months ago, having said goodbye to Danika forever.
Yeah.
Danika just sacrificed herself for everything.
Yeah.
Of course she'd want, like, another connection to her.
Yeah. That's
you
fair.
know? Just add another layer to that.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. Because... Yeah, I mean, Bryce is ultimately setting herself up for failure.
Absolutely.
Especially by, I want to know all of the secrets Danika kept from me, even if there's more that I didn't know about. No, she doesn't really.
No.
But she wants to cause herself pain because she's causing everyone else pain in her life.
Yep.
And she doesn't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs. How many do we have? Not bad.
Manageable.
Okay.
In chapter 10, Ithan, while in Bryce's bathroom, thinks, quote, just smelling this place, smelling her made his chest tighten. Because we're supposed to get the sense that Ithan has a thing for Bryce, even though he hasn't admitted it yet.
Also in chapter 10, Ithan thinks of himself, but now he was a free agent, a wolf without a pack, which is exactly how he acts in Flame and Shadow. Doesn't stop.
No. Ithan thinks, quote, wolves were social creatures, a wolf without a pack. It was a soul wound, one that would cripple most wolves, but he'd been struck a soul wound 2 years ago and had survived. A potential clue to Ethan's alphaness and prime status in Flame and Shadow, perhaps. He is stronger than your average wolf.
Still in chapter 10, quote, that's how you wound up following someone like Emile, a voice that sounded an awful lot like Connor's growled, make better choices this time, pup. Asses. Assess. Oh my God, my brain.
Me too. We're almost there, I promise.
Okay. Assess. Decide what you want. Another alpha prime hint, perhaps?
In chapter 12, we get info on the mech suits and Hunt knowing how to fix/break them. Quote, I could learn how they worked and then sabotage them. Mech suits come into play in CC3, and Hunt uses one to save Bryce. I think it's remember that we know that he knows how to use them.
In chapter 12, when Hunt and Bryce see the Reaper, Hunt thinks, quote, this was not an opponent he could fight against. No one could. Except Bryce will be able to.
Of course. Still in chapter 12, when Bryce asks why there is tension between Cormac Rune and his gang, Declan explains that Cormac and his twin cousins tried to kill them. Just some foreshadowing for how they'll do the same to Bryce in Flame and Shadow.
Chapter 12, Flynn, during the story time, mentions the caves at Avalon are full of mist. Mist is an important clue for Flame and Shadow. Also, Team Cave.
Team Cave. Declan mentions that the blood-sucking spirits in the cave, quote, ran screaming from the cave when Rune drew the Star Sword. More important info for when Bryce comes across some Reapers who we believe to be unkillable.
In chapter 13, when Bryce and Fury talk at the tea bar, quote, the street was empty save for a few cats picking through piles of trash, safe enough to talk without being overheard. Wow, I didn't catch this one. Wrong, Bryce, you forgot that Adis is a cat, or fake Adis.
Still in chapter 13, Fury tells Bryce of Ithan, he's always had a thing for you, you know. Why deny it, Bryce? Everyone is telling you this.
Finally, Fury alludes to the fact that Danika figured out what she was, which meant Fury figured out Danika was a bloodhound. Quote, it was as much as Fury had ever said about being whatever she is. Like, I feel like we're being Fury-edged.
Completely. And it's just for the Amarin reveal at the end.
Yeah.
But it's not even satisfying because it never comes up in Flame and Shadow. Either of them.
Absolutely nothing. Like, it's like she's special. We don't know where she comes from. And now she looks like Amarin. And Amarin comes from a different world. And Amarin used to be an angel. That means Fury must be... No, okay, we're just going to forget she exists and she flies a helicopter.
Yep. It's very annoying. Jacqueline.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jac.
No, it's okay. You can be mad at me.
What is Bryce truly prioritizing in pursuit of Emile and information about Danika and Sofie's interactions? And how does it influence her view on her relationship with Hunt?
I feel like we just talk and answer throughout the whole thing. Bryce is prioritizing herself.
Right.
With the guys prioritizing a child.
Or information about Danika.
Exactly. All for the sake of her own issues that she's not willing to cope or understand.
Yeah.
So it's like, why deal with these issues when I can go deal with the ones that mimic them over here?
Mm-hmm.
And this is just going to hurt Hunt left, right, and center. This doesn't get any easier. It's just going to get harder. I think I said it at the beginning of this episode where it's like, it is too early in the season to be this done with characters, but here we are.
Here we are. I completely agree with you. I think the fact that it gets called out that Bryce has not gone to therapy at the beginning of this book is really, really important.
It shows, yeah.
It shows. Bryce is using other people's problems as a vehicle to solve her own problems, which is not the healthy way to go about things.
Yeah.
Because she's not self-aware enough to really absorb the lessons that are right in front of her.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about it in the episode, but we said that this is a plot point. It's not it's not a device of it. It's an actual plot point of the book, right? Is Bryce's feelings and her tension with Hunt. I feel like this is just going to make me double down that all of this should have been resolved in this book. It's the same way that, like, I know certain themes can get carried on from book 1 to 2, like it's not going to be completely, closed chapter, closed book type of thing. But SJM is doing a really good job of introducing a plot point. That needs to have some kind of beginning, middle, end. Because that's just books, baby. Yeah. That's how that works.
Right.
The end could be a giant cliffhanger end. It could still be, it could be resolution end. But there's going to have to be a beginning, middle, end. Because at this point, it just feels like a beginning and then the next book and then it ends.
Yeah.
Without being resolved. Again, and that's without me having read the third one another time.
This is me theorizing that what we're going to see is not Bryce's beginning, middle, end with her attitude. It's going to be Hunt's beginning, middle, end with trying to conform to what Bryce wants.
Potentially. And I want to agree with it if it wasn't for the fact that it felt like he was dragging his feet even more in book 3.
Well, I think I think the point that I'm making, and I could be completely wrong, we're only into episode 3 of this season. We're only 20% of the way done. My theory is that Bryce isn't going to change much in this book. Hunt is going to try to meet her where she wants him to be, right? Yeah. He, against his better judgment, he's going to allow her to go to the Asteri Palace, and he's going to go with her even when his instinct is saying, don't do this.
Yep.
He's going to learn from that, like, no, this isn't okay.
It's like, I was right. We shouldn't have done this.
Right. And he's going to really struggle with that. Yeah. And Bryce has to learn in book 3 how to better communicate her needs, and he's going to have to better communicate his needs as well. Yeah. So it does feel like a lot of dragging on of something that could have been resolved in this book. I completely think we see eye to eye on that. Yeah. I want to trust SJM.
I feel like I'm going to have to power listen through the third book right now just so I can bring some fresh memory to it.
Yeah, I think we need to power listen to this book and to Flame and Shadow because I am concerned. Yeah. For the nature of their relationship in this book and how the same problems seem to come up in Flame and Shadow, and maybe they're not the same problems. Maybe we just don't have enough perspective.
You didn't reread this book before the third book came out.
No, I did not.
I did. So that's why I think this one's this book is slightly more fresh in my brain. Yeah. Because you're saying reread the rest, reread this, finish listening to this one. I'm like, I vaguely remember. But it's the third one that I am like, God, what happens there? So I might have to just go back and power listen to it this week just so that I can be like, if I'm going to judge.
I want to be an informed judge.
Exactly. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we will be exploring chapters 14 through 19 of A House of Sky and Breath.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or on a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo.
Bye! All right. I don't know if you saw that I wrote.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I saw that you added, which is like the point.
Yeah.
But
I know. I know.
When I was going through 12, I was like, woman, you were just supposed to hype. You had original thoughts.
I did, and they weren't ones I wanted to sacrifice.
That's fair. I accidentally opened up episode 2, and I was like, oh my God, only 20 pages. No. And then I was like, oh, episode 2, don't worry. Let's see what episode 3 is. Damn it, 20.
20 pages. Shit.
All right, let's get comfortable. We can take bathroom breaks.
Yeah.
Take a sip.
It is 3:30. Mm-hmm. GarageBand is showing 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
We'll be in around 6:30.
Yeah. I was really hoping for a 2-hour episode. Not today.
You know what, though? There's a lot on that I have. I'm a fast talker.
As long as we don't discuss a lot. Like extra discussion. Right?
Famous last words.
I know.
All right, let's dive in.
Woohoo!
3 hours. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I am too.
I was prepared for that to be close to a 4-hour.
That was tight.
I think that was the tightest.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.